Hello everyone. Today I want us to look at counters, how we can use counters in PLC project. I have a project here and I want us to look at it here. This project is such that we have a conveyor and there are items on the conveyor. So there is this deflector here which first has to deflect 6 items into one box here, and then after the 6 items are deflected into this box, the next 12 things will be deflected into this box, and then the conveyor will stop and the whole thing will start again. So in this project what we would need is 2 counters, one counting 6 and then the other counting 12. But there would be somebody, an operative or operator to operate the conveyor. So let's see how the project has been done here. Now this is the project. So I have here this conveyor, and once the operator presses the push button, the conveyor starts running and it's latched here. Those of you who knows about latch knows what I'm talking about, because if the conveyor is not latched and the push button is not a detent one, once you press, the conveyor will stop running. So it's latched here. The conveyor only stops once the counting, the 6 and 12 is done, and the counter number 2, which I've called it counter underscore 1, the second counter, which I call it counter underscore 1, finishes the 12, then it will interrupt the conveyor and the conveyor will stop. And if we want to start the counting again, then the start button will be pressed. So this is counter number 1, which I call counter underscore 0. Now this is a sensor here that senses the things coming to going to the first box, okay, being deflected into the first box. So 6 items has to be deflected into the first box here, and those items are sensed and counted by this counter. Once the counting is done, the 6 is reached. I have done the preset value to be 6. Once the 6 is reached, the output of this first counter will now set on the second counter, which is here, and I call this counter underscore 1. So you will see that the switch here that will make this counter work or start counting the 12 here, preset value 12 here, is the switch and the sensor. So the sensor here, which senses the item for the counter underscore 0, the same sensor senses the items here, but it's not going to count not until this first counter has reached 6, and then its output, it's on or goes high, and then lets this counter start counting. How is this project going to be interrupted? Now if I press the start button here, it resets everything to 0. It sets this counter underscore 0 to 0, sets that to 0, and then it also sets this counter underscore 2, so underscore 1 to 0. It sets it to 0. It sets that one to 0. So the same thing will set the counters to 0, and then also once this second counter underscore 0, so underscore 1, reaches its preset value, the counted value here is 12. It sets itself to 0. It resets itself to 0, and it will also reset itself to so it will reset counter underscore 0, which is the first counter, to 0. So you will see there's a power circuit here, or what we call an OR logic or OR circuit here. So what will set this to 0 is either the start button or counter underscore 1. And what will set counter underscore 1 to 0 is the start button here is the start button, or the counter underscore 0, this counter itself here, its output. Now the deflector changes position to count, to direct 12 items into the second box. So what causes the deflector to change position? It's the output of this first counter underscore 0. So once this counter underscore 0 reaches 6, it deflects this to this. It switches the deflector on, and the deflector changes position. So let's see how this is going to work. I'm going to start this project quickly, and then I'll start the running. Let's click on run here. I'll take this here. So what we are going to do here is that now I'm going to set this conveyor on. So I will just change from here to high. So I'll modify this, take it to 1. Once I've taken it to 1, I have to take it back to 0 because it's a momentary switch, and this is latched on. You can see this is latched on. So now I'm coming to the sensor here for this counter underscore 0, the first counter. So I'm going to take this to 1. See, 1 is registered there, and then back to 0. So it's going to be on and off. Okay, the 1 is on, 0 is off. So you see, just watch here, see the numbers increasing. So now that we have reached 6, you see this deflector is on. The deflector is on, and this has also started counting 1 here. Okay, so it's going to register 1. Once it's going to and this switch is also on. So I'm going to, instead of me staying here, I will come down here because I have the same sensor. So that we look at counter underscore 1, which is the second counter. Now let's see what's going to happen here. So I'm going to take it to 1, and it's increased to 2, and then I'll take it back to 0, and I'll take it back on high again. So on, off, 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 on, and now it takes us to 12, and you see it resets to 0. And let's go and see the conveyor here. And the conveyor should have been reset to 0 by the counter output here. So everything is set to 0 here, and that is also set to 0 there. And the counting could also start again. The counting could start if we take the sensor back to 0 and back on again. The counting will start counting on, and it goes on and on and on and on. So this is how you can do a counter project. If you have any queries or any problem, you can email me back, or you can just directly message me. Thanks for watching.